Hello everyone, my name is Yanedi Almonte. I'm in the Foreign Art course for the bachelor's degree, and today I'm going to talk about what is teaching, teaching Methos, teaching English as a second language, teaching English as a foreign language, and the students you teach. Concept of teaching. Teaching is the activity that imparts knowledge or skills to the students. Teaching is the act, practice, or occupation of a professional teacher. Instruct, train a person, and also wisdom to that person. The roles and expectation. Teachers in the classroom and outside play many roles in front of their students. Some of the most important teachers' roles are assessors, authorities, challenger, coach, conductor, controller, counselor, critical thinking, experience writer, facilitator, feedback provider, friend, guide, informant, judge, language teacher, learner, lesson planner, material writer, mediator, organizer, participant, professional prompter, researcher, resources, and role model, supporter bridge, syllable designer, technician, and sometimes webmaster. We can see that classroom teachers play many roles. For instance, they became fathers, mothers, or psychologists to encourage their students when they having problems and they need help or support. These roles are most frequently determined by outside factors, such as the use of computer in the classroom, activities of the days, the demand of the academic systems, etc. Expectation. We expect teachers to teach and to be the administrator of the new society. Teachers should know about the subject more than his or her students. The teacher must give grades and at least provide form or assessments. And the teacher is the person who has the control, manage, and lead the class, and should provide the students competence in English by the end of the term, the semester, of the course. Teaching English as a second language is use of English by the speaker with different native languages. Is often used for non-native English speakers learning English in a country where English is commonly spoken. English as a second language stands for English as a second language describes the great diversity of situations around the world where English is taught as second national language. Supposedly, English as a second language, in this, students enjoy many opportunities to practice and use English outside the classroom. It's taught in cities like, for example, Vancouver, British Columbia. Since English was and still is the national language of Canada, along French, it is used by the majority of people. It is the language of virtual all commercial, educational, legal, and political institutions. You will hear English in the classroom and on TV. Also, if taught in Vancouver, where the students are level in English. English as a foreign language is used English for non-native English speakers. Learning in a country where English is not commonly spoken. English is taught to people whose main language is not English and who live in a country where English is not official or main language. English as a foreign language stands for English and describes the great diversity of situations around the world where English is taught as a foreign language. Possessively, students have virtually no contact with English except from their classroom teacher. Teachers and perspective on teaching. Teachers are professionals who instruct, guide, or help students to get their goal. For example, learn English. A teacher is a person whose success depends on the interaction in the classroom, the approaches, activities, and resources that he or she uses to make his or her classes effective. There are four perspectives on teaching. The English expert. This teacher initiates almost all the classroom interaction. He or she questions the students responds, and follows up with some feedback. The teacher is clearly the expert because it's the person who knows English. The fan facilitator. The teacher in this class likes to give his students examples and let them discover rules by themselves. For this teacher, learning involves making guesses and inferring information. He or she views himself as a facilitator of the students. The next concept is the great conductor. This teacher encourages students' interaction either through peer or group. Most of the learning that takes place is not between the teacher and the student, but among the students themselves. You might consider his or her as a conductor or organizer. The exciting entertainment. This teacher has an environment very different. This classroom is lively, happy, and motivated. It's the place where focus is more on fun than on form. Nevertheless, the teacher firmly believes in his or her students and are exposed to just as much English as and learn as well as they do. We might think in this instructor as part motivator and part entertainer. Now the second topic is teaching mythos. The teaching mythos refers to the general principles, pedagogy, and management strategies used for classroom instructor to be implemented by teachers to achieve the desire of learning in students. They are general approaches oriented to learning objectives and activities to follow information between teachers and students. These strategies are determined partly on the object matter to be taught, and partly by the nature of the learner. For a particular teaching method to be appropriate and efficient, it has to be in relation with the characteristics of the learner, and the type of learning is supposed to read out in today's school, and it encourages the creativity of the students. Now I'm going to talk about the direct method. The direct methods, which is sometimes called natural methods, is a method of teaching the language directly, establishing a direct or immediate association between the experience and the expression, between the English word, phrase, or item, is meaning through demonstration, dramatization without the use of the mother tongue. Refers to the using of learners' native language. It uses only the target language. In this method, a native speaking teacher uses only the target language. Students guess the meaning from the gesture and the context at first, and later learn more complex patterns by building or simple expression they already acquire. Now let's talk about the grammar translation methods. It's a method of teaching foreign languages derived from the classical method of teaching Greek and Latin. In this grammar translation classes, Students learn grammatical rules and they apply those rules to translating the sentence between the target language to the native language. Advanced students might be required to translate all text word for word. This method has two main goals: to enable students to read and translate literature. Now the audiolingual mythos. The audiolingual mythos is focused on spoken communication in more real-life contexts. From these efforts, such as Methos, as the oral approach and situational language teaching was developed in the 1920s and 1930s by the prominent British linguistic Harold Palmer and A.S. Corbett. They place emphasis in listening and speaking skills and learning carefully control vocabulary and control sequencing of grammatical patterns. In this mythos, the famous slogan is listening before speaking, and speaking before reading, and reading before writing. So the center is the listening and speaking at first. Now I'm going to talk about the humanistic revolution. Just as of many countries around the world were experiencing social revolutions in the late 1960s, in the same way the field of English language teaching was affected by the revolutionary forces. Many innovative teachers started to become disenchanted of the audiolingual method, and they felt they need a response, and that response was a number of revolutionary humanistic methods. They began to emerge with the general idea of making language learning more personal, engaging, and innovative. Some of the best known methods developed in this period were the total physical response method, the Suggestopedia, the silent way, and community language learning. All four methods share some common features that make them a more humanistic approach to language teaching than other methods we've looked at. The limitation of these methods. While these methods seem to offer a variety of approaches to language teaching as well as innovative classroom activities, they each came with at least three limitations. The limitations were they don't address a variety of students' needs, so the methods were not flexible. They need the English to be seen as a worldwide language. They cannot work successfully with kids, teenagers, and adults. Other problem about the methods was that one method can't teach all the skills. We must pick up and show different methods for different teaching situations. Another thing, they place too many demands on the teacher, so the teachers need to make a big effort trying to explain and develop the class in a correct way with an heterogeneous group. Now I'm going to introduce the topic number 3, that is about English and English teaching. The way that English is viewed. English is a language. It's a language that has funny sounds, strange grammar, and weird spelling. It's also the language of Shakespeare and Hollywood. But most important, English is the language you teach. English is the language of the modern world. It's the dominant language of the decade. All people around the world know the English language importance in our lives because we need it in our jobs, to improve ourselves, having better opportunities, when we meet people from other cultures, when we travel on business, when we go on vacations, to know more about culture, history, etc. English is a language spoken and heard, written, and read everywhere. In music, in movies, classroom, airports, newspapers, emails, everyone knows what English is. Now, how linguistics look at English? They said, English is far the most global and international language in today's world. However, it is not the number one, at least as far as native speakers go. That honor belongs to Mandarin or Chinese, but is one of the most important and well known around the world. Who is a native speaker of English? A native speaker of English is someone who has learned and used English from early childhood. The person has primarily means of the constant information and communication, having lived in a truly English-speaking culture during one's formative years, so English has been absorbed. Native speakers spend all or substantial part of their developmental years, childhood or adolescence, within a particular language-borne geographic area. They acquire the language because they are immersed in it. In everyday home life, social activities at school, native speakers converse with other native speakers. How English language teaching is different. English has changed a lot. Nowadays, there is a great variety of resources, methods, characteristic evaluations, ways of teaching, environment that you can use to make your classes better. Students in a traditional English, as in other classes, used to listen to the teacher talking all the time. They took notes, they tried to memorize material, they did their homework and took tests. Actually, things are quite different. Now there are special schools with intensive English programs. English actually is very similar in certain schools to the subjects of art, sport, and music. Classes are available everywhere, and learning English involves more than acquiring facts. It's absorbing the knowledge and solving problems. It is a skill that requires observation, modeling, practice, and eventually the performance. The topic number 4 is students you teach. The people you teach. People you work with are very different one other. You'll be asked to look carefully at what students individually, and you consider all the variables which influence their learning in English. We might refer to the students as pupils, learners, scholars, English users, and depending on the ages and gender, they can also be called as girls, boys, children, kids, guy, man, woman, or simply people. We often refer to them generically or simply call them class. However, we should never forget that we really don't teach nameless, faceless class of learners. We teach real individuals who just happen to be together in the same class. The effect of age in general. Language acquisition research shows us that very young learners differ slightly from older learners. However, Critical period research is not at all relevant how we deal with age difference among students and how we teach them English. We can find the effect of age difference in our classroom. The enormous amount of enthusiasm and energy we saw frequently in first grade children is slow fade with age, so that by the time of the 70s they have comparatively little left for studying English. There might be very general decline in energy with students that get older. But as children age, they also grow cognitively, are able to learn more quickly and efficiently. The particular effect of age. When we refer to our students' ages, we'll find both advantages and disadvantages. For example, older learners, especially adults, have developed a richer chest of life experience that provides an important foundation of learning a new language. They learn easily new words and vocabulary. Small children are still too young to fully understand even basic concepts of communication. And elderly people know that communication can involve talking and funny, but it can also include sending and receiving messages through different media. We find that we can't assume that younger learners have a natural advantage over older people. When it comes to learning a language, age affects the language acquisition in different ways. So it's important not to produce your students' abilities in English based on superficial assumptions about how old they are. Why people study English? English is the world's language. It is used in everything from sports to science, entertainment to the economies, technology to careers, and telecommunications to transportation. So students have to study English even if they study business, law, engineering, or medicine. English is requirement nowadays for every good job position. In academic settings, English is just one part of a large curriculum, and students need to pass English to get promoted to the next grade. Their motivation to learn English is intrinsic, because English is just a means to achieve a larger goal. In some cases, students are learning English to improve themselves for better life opportunity and better life condition, or they study for a good career in a near future, recreation or preparation. Similarities and difference in participants in class. Our students are similar in their level. Sometimes they are basic level, intermediate level, reading students, grammar students, or English conversation students. On the other hand, exactly the same group of students can be considered different from each other within the level. For example, their ability levels probably differ slightly even if they were placed in your class because they all were supposed at the same level of English proficiency. Some of your learners are bolder and better at speaking, some are good at grammar and write neatly, some don't. And some seem struggle almost everything. We have different classes. In these cases, we have homogeneous classes and heterogeneous classes. That's all for my presentation. Thank you for the attention.